said, "What the heck are you doing?" And I said, "Well, Dad, I have 5 minutes to convince a room full of strangers that not only am I the angel of death, but that they absolutely, positively should be entrusting me with their children." And he said, "I gotta get a ticket to this. I don't know where the heck you're going with that." Because he's known me from a small age. I had no aspirations growing up of being a death lord or anything like that, and death was a little bit squeaky to me, like most people. I, in fact, wanted to be a physician, the sort of person that helps people and pushes death off as long as possible with some small missteps here and there. But the one thing that was holding me back from applying to medical school was doing the cadaver dissection freshman year. And so my mother, being very pragmatic, said, "Well, why don't you go volunteer at a morgue or something? That's a good idea." So that's how I found myself my senior year of college, volunteering at the Los Angeles County Coroner, where I learned all sorts of things about death. For example, the worst possible way to die is by crawling into the polar bear enclosure at the zoo after hours. Not recommended. Fortunately, an entirely preventable sort of death, but unfortunately for me, did nothing to dissuade me from my fears of death and gore. So I said, forget this med school nonsense. I'm going to go the warm and fuzzy route. I'm going to be a veterinarian. I'm going to cuddle puppies and kittens all day. I've read lots of James Harriet and Dr. Dolittle. You know, it seemed like a good idea at the time. But what I forgot when I was going through this whole rigmarole of what a vet does is the fact that while the average person lives, 70 years or so, the average dog or cat only lives about 12 to 15 years. And unfortunately, a good part of your daily life as a veterinarian is helping pets die a peaceful death when their time has come. So despite my best attempts to stave off death, I managed to manipulate myself into the one career that required me to kill people's beloved family members. And people have a hard time with that, which is understandable. We don't see death in the United States. 80% of people die in nursing homes, that thing, or in hospitals. And so when we don't know what death looks like, we're free to create this narrative in our head. We think death involves explosions and gore and zombies and all sorts of crazy things, where the truth of the matter, at least in my profession in the clinic, is death is actually a pretty peaceful process. Experience allows us to predict a lot of things. I can predict if you go on safari with a bunch of Americans, they're going to dress in head-to-toe khaki, stand with their hips cocked, and look at wildlife. I can also predict, when a pet comes in for euthanasia, exactly what's going to happen at every step of the death process. And people find that really comforting, which got me thinking, I don't really know why vets aren't doing a better job at helping people understand that death is a sad but very manageable part of life, particularly when it comes to talking to children. Okay, we end up screwing up our kids from a very young age. When their beloved pet is ill, we say, "Oh, he ran away, he went to the farm, he went to the vet and died there. Sorry, you don't like the vet." And that's because we don't really know what else to say. Vets aren't very good at giving you guidance about talking to kids about that. When my dog had lymphoma, I decided that I was going to euthanize him while my 3-year-old was at preschool. So he comes home and says, "Where's Emmett?" And I said, "Well, he was really sick and he died and he went to heaven." And he said, "Well, who took him?" And I said, "Angels." And he said, "What did they look like?" And I said, "They're invisible." So this poor kid started getting hysterically upset every time he got a cold for the next year, because he thought when you get sick, invisible angels can pop out at any time and drag you out into the Which, was when I decided I maybe needed to change my approach to this. Kids are smart. We don't give them nearly enough credit. He knew Emmett was sick. He's the one who gave him that trash bag for a chemo blanket. We're the ones who have a difficult time with emotions. Kids are really good at it. So that's why I work now as a hospice veterinarian, because I have learned that the experiences that we have with the death of a pet translate to the experiences that we have with people, and vice versa. When a person's first experience with death is a peaceful passing that they see at home, they start to think to themselves, well, maybe that's what I want for the people in my lives as well. This is my grandfather, and he was terminally ill, and there were smiles right up until the very end. So think of me less as the angel of death and more like a death fairy, because I'm the one who's going to keep you guys out of the home when you're old and messed up and home with your family and friends. But only if you loan me your children and get back long enough to convince them that death can and should be a family affair. Thanks.